Hey, what's up, guys? It's Master Flame. It's Monday, and it's time for Master Motivation. I apologize, guys. I know a couple of you have been sitting there probably waiting for us to jump on, but we had a little technical difficulties, and that just happens with technology. But I'm so excited to have Ronny Camacho on the show today. So welcome to Master Motivation today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
Hey, so just I want to remind you and just remind all the viewers that are watching or will watch later. The reason for the video is that back in 2020, we obviously got hit with a pandemic and all kinds of stuff kind of changed in how we interacted socially and how people were dealing with things, kind of sitting at home a little bit lonely. So as I was sitting at home, I was thinking to myself, man, I've had a lot of people that have motivated me and inspire me every day in my life, in my business, as an athlete. And I wanted to highlight some people that I thought would really bring some motivation and give some people some inspiration. So you definitely came up top of the list. It's July, so it wasn't for a lack of. I didn't number it in order of importance, but I got you in because I know you're super busy. And we actually, I think the first time we met, right? I think the first time we met was at a Krav Maga event. I think it was in Simi Valley, and Mr. Cox introduced me to you, and then was telling me all about your training and stuff, and we actually got a chance to train together. You helped me get ready
Absolutely.
for my comeback in pro wrestling, got me in some pretty good shape. So anyway, I'm just super excited to kind of introduce you to everybody and let you tell your story. So if we could you just kind of maybe briefly introduce yourself a little bit more and give us your background?
Okay. My name is Ronny Camacho. I'm 49 years old, married, have two kids. I have a 27-year-old son, 9-year-old daughter. I have a 1-year-old, 1.5-year-old grandson. So I'm a G-pop, as I like to say, not grandfather. This is my thing. I was real quick. I'm a personal trainer. I'm life coach. Been doing that 22, 23 years. I'm also an outreach youth specialist where I go speak at schools and motivate the younger generation to not just get good grades, but also talk about real life issues, whether it's bullying. But nowadays it's a lot more serious than the bullying it was before. So these kids nowadays have access to so many more things that could be more dangerous for them. So actually, schools are asking me to come in and give them a little bit, kind of not a real talk, but just kind of let them, understand a little bit what's going on. So that's been my biggest thing now. Like I'm the whole, giving back to the community. I do a lot of outreach. I do a lot of, giving back, feeding the homeless, and even in the Philippines. So that's been my big heartstring is giving back.
Absolutely, and Facebook can be it can be a double-edged sword, right? You look at Facebook and you could see a lot of doom and gloom, but one of the first people that I look for their post in the morning, to be honest with you, is you post every single day. It actually inspired me to post some daily motivation, but it's so inspiring. It's just so great to see the positivity that you put out there, and you're an excellent trainer. I had a lot of fun working with you, and it still
Thank you.
incorporate a lot of the tools and the training tips that you gave me, to continue my workouts. And I do see the giving back in the community, helping the homeless and helping at church. And you do a lot. And I think that we'll get into that a little bit more. So let's talk about your childhood and growing up.
Okay.
Where'd you grow up and what was your life like with mom, dad, family?
Yeah, well, I was born in Frank. A lot of people don't know. My first language is German. So I was born in Frankfurt, Germany, and my mom, my biological father, they split up. My biological father got kicked out of the service. He was in the military, and he got a dishonorable. So, which is all good. They came to an agreement. My mother had a good job, so she said, she'll take care of me. And he actually wanted to bring us to the United States. But she felt when you get a dishonorable, she didn't know what the future would hold. So they just, no, they weren't mad at each other, nothing. They just split ways, and my mother started taking care of me. So I went to German school. I went to German kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and then my mother met my stepdad, but who I actually call my father, right? And it's funny because my stepfather, my dad, he when he was young, he looked like Bruce Lee, right? And in the 70s, Bruce Lee was everybody's favorite person, right? So
Oh
I
yeah.
remember my mom would say, she met someone and he's really nice and this and that. Now, mind you, I didn't speak English yet, right? So he walks through the door, and I'm just like, like I'm like, and then to top it all off, he's a Taekwondo instructor. He does demonstrations at the military bases in Germany. So he used to take me with to his exhibitions, and he would do the exhibitions that I would see, that Bruce Lee did. So then it was like, I don't know, I was in love now. So then started teaching me martial arts, but also taught me English, right? So then it was in 1980, 81, they got married in Germany. Then we went to Guam. Because he's from Guam. And
Okay.
Guam it's between, Japan and Hawaii, Guam's smack in the middle. So it's a real speck in the Pacific. So I went there, huge family, his family, 11 brothers and sisters. So it's
Wow.
like typical Islander family, huge, right? So I went from Germany to very rural living conditions, which was the best thing, right? They had, I think, 1,100 square foot house, and you can do the math with all the, cousins, brothers, sisters. So
Right.
I moved there in 81, stayed there for 2 years, went to school there as I'm brushing up on my English. And the whole thing was, he always introduced me as his son. That man taught me so much, because when in the 70s I had an afro, right? So if you think about, we couldn't look any different, right? And he would introduce me, this is my son Ronnie. And people, the eyes don't lie, right? And they're like,
Right.
yeah, okay, well, doesn't really add up. But he never ever called me his stepson, and that taught me a lot into the man I became. Right. So we stayed in Guam, then we moved to Hawaii, and I started going to school, middle school, high school, college in Hawaii. That's where I met my wife, and I moved to California in '99, and I actually was a flight attendant. So long story. There's a lot to this book.
Yeah, well, and this is, I personally, I love to hear it because I love to learn more about,
Right.
everybody on the show. I love hearing more about you.
Right.
Some of the things I've never heard before. Some of the things I've heard little bits and pieces, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely expand. It sounds like your dad, your stepfather, just really filled an important role in your
Oh,
life, and taught you a lot. So talk about how he taught you to be a man and how to be a father and a husband.
oh man, he was in the army as well. And I would see him, he would always work. Always, he would bring me with to work. Like when I was young, I would go into the barracks where, even when he had to reprimand soldiers, sometimes he'll bring his kid along, and I would see. But he showed me structure, right? He showed me the about authority of, and it's in Guam. It's very respect your elders, like huge, like respecting your elders is the biggest thing in the culture. So if there's a 90-year-old grandma that tells you to sit down, doesn't matter how big you are, whatever, you sit down fast. Because if you
Could we
don't,
bring that? Could we bring that back?
oh,
So
it'd be
more
huge,
kids learn that.
huge. And that's one of the things I speak on in school. It's about respect, right? Respect your elders, right? And so he taught me that. I learned that in Guam. But then when I was living with him, he always treated my mother with the utmost respect. And he's always working, and he didn't want my mom to work. Not that she couldn't work, but he just didn't want her to. So he would tirelessly just grind, right? That's like the grind. I would see him, work his butt off, so to speak, but also with my little sisters, since I have two sisters. So there's a 10-year gap and a 13-year gap. So I was like the second dad, so to speak, because when he would get deployed, he'd always say, you're the man of the house. Like when he gets deployed, or he goes even when they go on exercise, I'm the man of the house. So he kind of instilled that in me, that if I'm not here, you take care of the girls. So he instilled that to me at a young age, to take care of your family, no matter what. We didn't have much, but we had a lot of that. So whatever we lacked with money, or because he was E1, E2, E3, E4. So you don't make much money when you're in the lower ranks until when he retired as a master sergeant. But before that, we didn't really have much. But the one thing he always instilled to the family was love. Like I respected him from what he could do, not just as a father, but as a fighter, right? But he was like the most gentle soul, until you piss him off, right?
Sounds like someone else I know.
Next question. Not just kidding. And
Right.
but he always talked to me about how you should take care of your family, Then when I became a father, then he gave me the talk, and I say, man, I'm gonna just try to duplicate what you did, and hopefully that will measure up enough to so that's what I implement, even with how he used to treat my mom, and I try my best to be like that with my family. I'm not perfect, different times, but I really, that man that was heaven sent. I mean, he literally, he showed me about pride, right? And me, uh, there's always a flag around me somewhere, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
and
Yes, sir.
and for me, it's about, and a lot of people don't know this. I got my American citizenship. I went through the process. So when I first came here, I was a registered alien, right? So I know the whole process. And when I gave up my German citizenship, they didn't allow dual citizenship, right? So
Okay.
when you give up a German citizen, you're not giving up a shabby citizenship there. So giving that up to get the American citizenship was pride, because here's the man that pretty much took my mom and myself in and just provided this life, and the U.S. military made that possible, right? So for me, it's like honoring him for the life he has given to my family, and I'm instilling that into my kids. And as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to be instilling those core values that he taught me. And that's why I'm so patriotic, because I've been around the world. I've been in third world countries, and I also understand what this, and nothing is ever perfect, but I want to embrace the good, and this is the best country, period. So so that's kind of the link that I have with my patriotism, is because of my dad. My dad he's a warrior. He's been deployed. Actually, we got a scare in Desert Storm because they were going through the desert, and he was in his munitions truck, and the munitions truck dumped over and lit on fire. So he got slung out of the truck, and he went back to save his driver. Well, when the word got back to us, is somehow the names got flipped.
Oh,
So my mom gets a call that this happened, and that the driver since the name switch, and was, I think, 80% burned, right? And that he wasn't going to make it. So I'm in Hawaii, they're in North Carolina. I fly back, and I'm thinking, holy moly, I got to be like the man for real, right? So then you never can prepare for a call like that.
no.
And then, as about a week later, in the military, you can't sue the military, right? So they call up and they say, there's been a mistake. Actually, your
Wow.
husband had his hands burned. He was in Germany getting skin crafts and stuff, but it's just his hands. So it's the
Wow.
other guy, and God rest his soul, but it was just a mix, and it was just kind of like, so that was, you thought you just lost your dad, and then you get your dad
Right.
back. So you're like, ah,
Oh, yeah, for sure. For
so.
sure.
Mhm,
You know, you mentioned that he brought a lot of structure and discipline,
mhm,
and I consider you to be probably one of the most disciplined people I know, especially because of your personal fitness level and what you've accomplished in your life. Talk a little bit about as a teenager moving into high school, how that affected you, and when you started to get into sports at a higher level, and being a physical trainer as well.
Yeah, I actually high school was funny. The junior year of high school, he got stationed to Fort Bragg, and we're in Hawaii. So and
Mm.
all my friends, everything was going good. So we got transferred. So I had the choice, not the choice. He's like, all right, we're moving, right? So we
Mm.
moved to North Carolina, and big switch from Hawaii, by the way.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I go to school, and I guess one of the coaches hears that I play soccer. So he came up to me, try out. I made a team. Long story short, my dad got different housing. So what happens is when you get different housing, you move away from, you have to go to a different school. Problem was the school that I went to was a rival school. So when I transferred, I was at a football game, and you know when you get this feeling, Jason, that something's
Yeah.
not gonna good right now, right?
I,
So these a couple of guys come up, a couple black guys come up the bleachers, and they're like, "Are you from E. Smith?" And I'm like, "No, I'm from Westover, man. I go to school here now." They're like, "No, you're from E. Smith. And why are you talking to my girl?" And
oh boy.
right then I knew I ain't talked to anybody, but they were just so they're like, "Okay, we got something for you, right?" And we all know what that means, right? So I'm like, damn. So I was with someone. So towards the end of the football game, I said, "Look, man, we're gonna leave early, and we'll walk down these bleachers. You get away from me because I want to be on my own, you know." So, dude, I'm walking, and I look behind me, and there's just this mob, like mob. And look, we can all scrap, man, but there's a point where there is no scrapping in that, right?
Right. Right.
So I'm walking. I'm like, what now, right? So I see Golden Arches through like the woods and the McDonald's. And I just said to myself, I gotta get to that McDonald's before they get to me or it's done. Right.
Right.
So Jay, I booked. I was like a bat out of hell. I ran into McDonald's, jumped over the back counter. The manager was tripping out. And I told him, I said, man, they're gonna kill me, but it's their back door. And can you just hold them off so I can sneak out the back? Long story short, he lets me sneak out the back. I run home like far. And I get home, man, and I wake my mom up and I told her what happened. I worry about my sisters, right? Because I have two little sisters. And
Right.
I'm like, man, I don't want to be here, right? Just for the safety of the family, whatever. So my dad called Hawaii and he had a cousin that lived there that said I could stay with him. So I'm like, cool, I'm going back to Hawaii. I go back to Hawaii within about a month that he wants me out. So I had nowhere to go, right? So my best friend, the parents just got divorced. They were living in a transitional homeless shelter. So the mom goes, well, it was her and the two boys. You can come stay with, tell Ronnie he can come stay with us. So my junior year, I stayed in transitional center, bro.
Mm.
Right. So it went from, and it's not, my parents didn't do anything, but I made a decision to stay in Hawaii, not go back to North Carolina. And the conditions were I'm on my own and not
Right.
anything my parents did wrong. But I say, you
Right.
know what, if I'm going to make this decision, I got to take ownership and get it done. So my high school was a totally different experience by choice. So I literally went to school. I went at the airport. I vacuumed cars at lunchtime for 4.25 an hour until about 6 p.m. Then I caught the bus to Waikiki to work at a photo lab to 11, and that was my high school. So there was no, people going to proms, and it was just a totally different getup, and like, and but I learned so much, man. I learned appreciation. There's sometimes we ate at school, and then maybe whenever I get something on the way. So I think that's where a big part of my giving back comes from is that when you
Mhm.
taste it, and it was by
Right.
choice. Like the thing is, it's different if my parents kicked me out and I had that story, but it's quite the opposite. My mom was like, "What are you doing?" But
Mhm.
I also get that from her. Once I put my mind to something, I go. I just go. And this one, I've learned some lessons from this, man. But that was my high school, man.
It sounds like that's where the hustle began, right? You talk a lot about the hustle, the grind, a
Yeah, man.
lot. and it sounds like that's where it all started. And it's interesting that you bring up that you had an experience that sparked that whole giving back, because a lot of the people that I talk with that are so focused on giving back and being a strong member of their community have had some kind of situation that was life changing. And man, I never even knew that story about you, but that
Right.
that sounds really, really life changing, because it was all based on your decision too, to go
Right.
over there, right? So it
Right.
wasn't like your family was down and out. I
No.
mean, you chose to go there, so it was just kind of the impact of that decision. But in the end, like you said, it taught you a lot.
It was
It taught you,
huge
you know what
because
I mean?
I could have chosen the easy button. Easy.
Right,
Boop,
right,
done. I would
yeah,
not I been good. But you know what, man? And that's what in life, there was this thing by Steve Harvey. It's called Jump. Everybody that's into motivation has saw it. It's about 6 minutes when the Family Feud took a break and he talked to the studio audience for 6 minutes. He talked about jump, like you got to jump, right? And I
hmm
think that's whatever the decision is, own up to it and handle it, right?
right,
You're
right,
gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, but you keep swinging. So you're
right,
absolutely right. That's where that came from. It's like, okay, I can either sit back. No one was gonna come feed me, right? No, no one's coming to save me. So that's exactly where it came from. It's like, okay, if you want something, go get it. So my mentality, if you tell me I can't, that's like, go ahead, tell me I can. That's just gonna give me a little
that's
more
fuel.
juice. That's
Yeah,
that's my fuel, man. And I used to see people have like, you know, you know, go home to go eat lunch or get together. Didn't have that by choice,
right,
and no, hey, it's all good. I never had hard feelings, but I took pride in, that I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna do this.
yeah,
That's why now when it's a chance to give back, it's like when you're used to not having much, it doesn't matter. Like
right,
if a person is hungry, okay, what it just feels amazing because you know what that feeling's like.
right,
You know what that feeling's like, and just getting a helpful hand when you didn't ask for it feels amazing. So
hmm
that's kind of what pushes it for me to give back, to motivate kids, to my whole giving back as I know the feeling, and
right,
to make somebody just feel better. That's for the only reason. I don't, like you mentioned my quotes in the morning. They're not for likes. Like what I do, my routine is I get up, I have a cup of coffee. For 30 minutes, I look at quotes. And whatever
hmm
jumps out at me, I post. And I think if one person can see this and have it hit them like it hit me, it's a win, right?
hmm
If it's more, great. But if it's
right.
one, that was the whole thing behind that, is doing my part to throw a nugget out there.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you firsthand, I can tell you that on more than one occasion, I've woken up and read your quote, and I'm like, I'm killing this day, right? I'm killing the day. So I
Hell
love
yeah.
it. And there's a certain level of confidence too that comes with that fact where, I mean, those of us that have been at the bottom and know what it's like to do without, and know what it's like to not have, look at your friends at school and they got all the cool stuff and you don't have it, and you live in a place that, like, not many people really understand what that's like. I mean, a lot of people don't know that as a young kid, my parents and my two brothers and I lived in a 20-foot travel trailer for probably about 18 months. We spent
Wow.
almost 9 months in a tent while my dad was building a house in Oregon. So it's like, you
Wow.
kind of take that and you go, well, I mean, it can't really get much worse, right? And then when things are really good too, though, when things are really good, it's almost, in a way, I don't know if you feel this, but in a way, when things are really good, you almost feel like, do I even deserve this? Or like, is this real? And,
Yeah.
and is it going to last forever?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just I'm thinking out loud and kind of,
Absolutely.
just coming off of what you're talking about. But it is inspiring to see people that have that same, that hustle, that drive, that energy,
Mhm.
that enthusiasm, because it is infectious. It is contagious.
Yeah.
So I know that I feel it even just talking with you, and
Oh
when I
man.
was training. Plus, you would never give me a break when I was training with you. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the getting into being a trainer and even before that, I mean, you were a high level competitor. I mean, if people saw your pictures, they're just like, what the hell,
Yeah.
right? Talk about some of your competition days, training, and
Okay.
training your clients.
I think, I got into bodybuilding actually, but I was watching a show in Hawaii. I think it was in 94, 96, I believe. And Shawn Ray was guest posing. And I'm looking at this dude and I'm like, wow, that's perfection. Like, and under my breath, I said, man, I want to look like that. Right. And there was an older gentleman next to me. And how we talked about respect your elders, right? So he goes, don't even think about it or something like that. And I'm like, but you can't say anything because you're instilled to, okay, right? But I was like, I'll show you, right? So I started I had a cousin that was into working out. I started picking his brain. I started talking to anyone that I felt knew something. And back then, we didn't have YouTube. So you had to go look at magazines and try to
Right.
read things and figure things out. So it was a lot more labor intensive than right now, where you can just look up at all the greats and you can kind of cherry pick what you want to do. I
Right.
couldn't do that. So a lot of it was trial and error, trial and error. And then I did my first show in Hawaii in 2000, right? And I got, I think, fifth. I got best poser though, and then it just sparked something. And I always thought about, if the best competition is in California, right? If you can do it in California, you can do it anywhere. If you
Right.
can win in California, you can definitely do it anywhere, right? So moving forward in 98, I moved to Miami because I was a flight attendant. And in 99, I moved to LA. So I started getting more into it. And, I started just really I don't know, I just felt like a drive to do it. I wanted to be the best one of the best in the nation. That means I had to win in California. So that
Right.
was the goal. I had to win an overall show in California, and then it will be success. So that's what I did. I started really getting after it, came to California. I think I got fifth, and then I won two shows. So that's when it all started. Then people start hitting me up for training, and so it kind of worked hand to hand, because in college I was I wanted to be a social worker. So that's where the whole mind, body, spirit stuff comes with me, with the motivation that I
Right.
get in the person's head first, and then we worry about the physical, right? So that was kind of where training to me intrigued me, is to teach every person how to do it right. And I took pride in, when I train someone, I don't want to handicap them and feel that they need me. I want to teach them so they can do stuff on their own. Now, remember, a client was like, that's not a good business model, right? I said, I get it, man, but I also, it's my way of giving something, that if they take something from me and they continue to use it, what better payment is that to me,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
So that's kind of how, the whole bodybuilding thing. And one time I went back to Hawaii and for a show, and the same man, I was at a booth, and the same man, I had a friend that was at a booth, so I just came to say hi. And then he goes, hey, I know you. I'll congratulate you for all this work. And I'm looking, I said, I know this guy. And I went, oh, damn. And I said, I want to thank you. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you don't remember me. And he goes, no, you did this, you did it. I said, no, 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 no. Before all this. And I told him about the show. And I said, I sat next to you and you told me I couldn't. And that's what drove me. And then he was like, he kind of went back, because
His eyes went big.
and I said, I'm not upset, man. I truly mean thank you. Because without those words, we wouldn't be talking right now, but that's the kind of thing. It's like, once that just, and that's what I teach even to the kids. Like, if you want something, you go for it. No
Right.
excuses. You figure out a roadmap to get there, and then pin your ears back and go. Never mind trying to find a perfect path, because there is no perfect path. You're going to either go, you're going to learn from it, you're going to succeed, you learn, or you're going to fail, which you learn a lot more from, and then you're going to succeed maybe in a different direction by pivoting. So that was my, bodybuilding and competitive, arena. That's kind of how Dad evolved, to
What
get.
was the pinnacle of bodybuilding and doing the shows for you? What was just the top of the list for you?
It was, man, it was posing, being up there and hearing my family,
Mm,
like knowing where they were, hearing my son, because my son was small. So my son would he would help me like call out the poses while I posed. So he knew everything. And I
uh-huh.
could hear him in the crowd, get him, Dad, get him, Dad. And I'm like, man, let's go. So that was for me the absolute best, is just hearing that. And that just gave me that, like, let's go, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an awesome feeling too. I mean, my son's 16 now, and anytime I ever get any, well, at 16 you don't get it a lot right now. It'll probably in a couple years
Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah.
different. But those times where he's just like kind of looking up to dad, and that just fuels you that much more. I love it.
Absolutely. And you get in that age where, like you said, 16, 17, they become their own man, right?
Yeah.
And then now he's 27 and he has told me some things now where you think they're not getting it or they're not understanding
Right.
it. And you're just like blown away of what really does soak in, that you don't realize soaks in until they express it at a later age, which is really cool, right? And that's,
Right.
that helps me process also, because you're like, man, you're right. They go through these stages, they idolize you, and then they're their own man. And then you're like,
Right.
what happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything
No.
they could take, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah. That ain't happening.
Exactly,
No. I always have a couple tricks up my sleeve. Um,
exactly, man.
And then, so you get into training.
Mm-hmm.
Your bio talks about the trainer to the celebrities. I know that you trained some high level people. Um, Training people, I know as a martial arts instructor for all of my life, is
Mm-hmm.
one of the most rewarding things, because like you said, when you can give back to others, when you could see someone succeed because of your help or because of your work or because of your input. And I mean, as a father, it's the same thing. When you see your kids succeed, it's a greatest it
Right.
feels even greater than your own success in a
Absolutely.
lot of ways. So talk about starting your business and getting started training and what you're doing now.
Well, my tagline was always changing lives one person at a time. And I take heart to that. Like, when I work with an individual, it's just them, right? I want to, whatever their goals are, once they tell me, I help them get there. And whatever that is. But my whole thing is, I went into this to honestly change people's lives, not just with working out, but also with not just telling them how to eat right, but figuring out how to eat balance and eat the right way for a year, right? Because it's very
Mhm.
easy to do, 6 week, 8 week, 12 week. But when you have to do it as a lifestyle,
Right.
you want to make it more doable, or else it can get very discouraging. So my
Mhm.
thing was simplicity, like, and you've gotten to train me, but my whole thing was to teach people in a very simple way, to not try to pat myself in the back with what I know, is come down and just truly try to help them. So when I started this, and I think that training style is, I've never ever had to send out a flyer or this and that. It's all word of mouth. And I believe it's because when you can't fake caring, right? You cannot fake when you truly care. Like, even when you instruct someone, martial artist, whatever, if the people know you care, right? That's huge. And they talk about that. And they know that, I don't ever lock someone up to train with me. I always joke around. I'm like, this is an interview at the
Mm.
consultation both ways,
Right.
right? Because I got to know that I can work with you, just like
Right.
you have to know that you can work with me. So don't think if you give me 20 sessions that now you owe me for 20 sessions. It's I'll give that right back, because it's always open ended. There's no lock, nothing, because I want the person to put their guard down. You know what I mean? So for me, for training, it's very like, but it's about changing lives, man. Like, I really, truly, and it doesn't matter, celebrity or athlete. I get just as much of a kick helping, an elderly person be able to go and use the restroom, like standing up. Like, I taught one of my clients, we worked on how to get up, because in case they fall or slip, A
Right.
basic thing is getting up. We take that for granted. But if you're 75, you might not know how to get up. And that's such a
Yeah.
helpless feeling. So to me, to when we conquered that in the gym, we're like laying down and we're going through the motion and how to get
Right.
up. But that
Right.
was the same like if I work with someone and they win a show. That was the same rush. Like so for me, training and working with people, it's bigger than that. So that's how my business grew and grew. And now, I mean, I'm fortunate to be able to, I was joking my wife in the beginning. I was like, I want to get to a point where I can train who I want to train and I can give back and I can go whatever. And I don't know, if I should pro bono. I've done a lot of pro bono. If I had an invoice for all the pro bono, man, I have a second house. But I feel that's what God put me on this earth to do. And that was always the dream, to be able to train whenever, you know, if I feel like someone needs help. And there's been occasions where I know they can't afford my hourly by far. But then it's kind of like I feel God like go, so then you make it happen. But now I'm in the position where I can do that. And it allowed me to form other businesses to help fuel this passion that I have, and I'm now Writer for Life Foundation, that's set up now. And I'm just going through the process now to get my nonprofit status because it's my way. It's going to be able to reach more people, and
Right.
change
Right.
more lives.
Right, right. Yeah, and you brought up something, you can't fake caring, and the old
Hmm.
quote that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's just, I think that's such a valuable attribute as a person, to really be able to show that you care, and obviously you do that with your clients and in your community.
Hmm.
And it's also interesting to me too, and of course Mr. Cox wants you to I think you saw this, right? Mr. Cox wants you to help him get up when he's 75. He said he's getting close, by the way.
I don't think he's
Um,
going to have any issues.
no, no. I think he'll have need more help picking the other people up that he's knocking down.
With him,
But
it's probably, oh, help me get up, and then he'll pull you down or do something. So I wouldn't even trust that to have him
right,
help him up.
and bite you while you're there.
Oh yeah,
Um,
he'll do something.
So, one of the things that I notice about people that are successful in their area, like yourself, you've been successful in the area of training people, and you kind of go from this. It's kind of about, it starts out maybe about the money. It's a little bit about the attention, right? Because like, hey, when we're on stage, there's no doubt that you love the attention.
Oh man, yeah,
Everybody
hundred
loves that,
percent,
right?
100%,
but
hundred
then,
percent.
but then things kind of go to where you want to expand your vision, and you want to expand what your whole goal is. And like you
Hmm.
said, your goal is to help more people. And so talk a little bit more about that foundation that you've created, and some of the other things. I know you're involved in
Okay.
your church a lot, and, and,
Right.
and you do go out and help, feed the
Hmm.
homeless. So talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, of being on stage, great. Becoming one of the best, great. Being a personal trainer and becoming one of the top personal. That was a goal. With me, it's like once I get the goal, I look for another goal, right?
Right.
So then that's done. Okay, check, 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 celebrity check. But then it's like, so you get through all the checks, and then it's kind of like, okay, now what? And I always loved helping people. I mean, I get a kick out of giving somebody directions. Like, I feel so great when I can give somebody directions. So that's always been my thing. So, once all the I still love training, but you're right. Setting up the foundation is, I went to a trip to the Philippines. A buddy of mine was doing this for years, and I overheard from a friend that he literally was doing auctions up north, getting his own money and sending supplies to the Philippines, then flying there and handing them out. And I'm like, that's amazing, right? So I told my friend, I said, man, if your friend ever needs help, let him know I'll go, right? Well, 3 weeks later, I get a call. Yeah, Ronnie, you want to go? So then I literally booked a ticket to fly to the Philippines, never been there. And I
Mhm.
pretty much, how we talked about jump? Like, you're
Right.
going into the unknown, into a third world country, and Philippines ain't no joke. So I'm sitting there in the terminal, and I remember calling my wife, and I'm like, across the world. waiting for a person that I've never met before. Hmm.
Right.
I mean, I watch shows. So then we get there, and for 2 weeks straight, man, we just give out snacks and food. And like for a third, like this is rural areas. I'm talking no running water, no this. And it was so empowering. Like I was there, Jay, like I had to take like sinus breaks, you know, because it was just so stimulating. Of they had so little, and I could kind of relate a little bit because in Guam, my family didn't have much, so we had no running, no hot water. So I can relate to some of this, and I see these living conditions, and they have these Filipino snacks like Cheetos, just like ours, but just Filipino name. But we
Right.
go out so far where these kids never, ever would ever get this, ever. Like I had to grasp that. They will never get these chips on their own, which is insanity of how we waste food here, right?
Oh yeah.
So we're giving these care packages and these little kids, and I'm just like, you know, and
Totally.
they're so
Totally.
grateful, dude. And I go there and I'm like, I want to do more of this. Like I want to be able to do more of this. And I told my buddy, I'm like, look, man, we'll be able. I'm gonna figure something out where we can grow this, and we'll just make this bigger. Be able to give out to more people, more kids, more this, and that's what kind of sparked the Writer for Life Foundation to build something that I can get people to contribute, and also not just to give money. If they want to go help, get it all set up because we have the end there where people can literally buy a ticket. Let's go. Let's do this. I mean, it's nice that you donated, but you want to help hand these out, right? To create
Hmm.
something like that where you can, because I feel personally that there's a lack of appreciation in this country, period, right? And if they can't go, we're gonna video it, and let's say I'm just use your name and say, okay, Jason Flame donated this. When we're there, I'm gonna video, okay, Jason, this is for you, and I'm gonna show Jason's money being used as it's getting handed out. So I'm just the middleman, right?
Right.
This is more about Jason contributing to make something happen, and I'm just passing it on. And that's kind of what is behind Writer for Life. This is what I want to do. I want to create something where, because not everybody can go out and do things, or people want to help, but they don't have the vehicle. No problem. I'll be the vehicle. And then if you can't make it, you'll see your money working, right? And that's kind of because I feel people say, oh, people don't care nowadays. I don't agree with that. I think there are people that don't, but there's also people that don't have a vehicle because a lot
Right.
of they don't. People give money, they want to make sure it's getting to the right thing. So I
Right.
want to be like, you want to give, I'm gonna be involved in good things. So very transparent, and that's kind of what this foundation is getting set up to do, is just to be able to, not just in the Philippines, but then also locally, because I want to bring out I'm working on getting a program out for the Canal Valley for the school system, right?
Right.
Where it's going to be like a shark. It's supposed to be. Well, it was set up to do in LA first, and I met with some people. We're going to get in LA for underprivileged kids, because when I speak at schools, you get these gems that like are so talented. Or let's say, for instance, if someone is an artist and they want to do a clothing line, but they don't teach entrepreneurship in school, right? So how
Right.
would that kid ever be able to dig its way out? What we want to do is to provide a kind of a platform where it's almost like a mini Shark Tank, like, and we have mentors. So these kids that let's say this kid that had this talent, we say, okay, we'll take him on, we'll assign a mentor to him or her, and teach them about entrepreneurship and how to get this going. And if it's viable, the foundation will front the cost. So if it takes, let's say in the business plan, $10,000 to make this happen, boom. Because I feel that even if the business doesn't work, we know this, we're businessmen, that not working and learning how to pivot is where you really learn. So
Right.
these kids learn that just because you want something and you don't get it doesn't mean it's not for you. You just learn to pivot, right? So we teach how to to think like an entrepreneur. And that's kind of, so I talked to this group. I said, well, you guys want to do this in LA and you want me to be the front man, but I have a lot of ties in the Canal Valley. How about using the Canal Valley like a satellite program? So that's what's in the work right now, to bring that to the Canal Valley.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Having grown up in Conejo Valley, a lot of people look at it as probably one of the most affluent areas in Southern California, and you just don't think that there's kids that need this program where there absolutely are. But what I love more than anything else is teaching that entrepreneurial spirit. And one of the things that I missed, well, I think my kids missed because I had it in school, and you probably did at some point, but shop classes like
Mm-hmm.
wood shop classes, metal shop classes, auto
Mm-hmm.
shop, like they
Yeah.
don't have that in school
No.
anymore at all. I
No.
mean, trade schools are not, everybody's so focused on going to the Ivy League schools and the high level, but not everybody wants to do that. That's not everybody's goal,
Absolutely.
and we need some people to understand that. So it's great that you have again that vehicle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you're right. There's a lot of people that want to give, they want to do, but they just
Mm-hmm.
don't know how. They just don't know who to look to.
Or
So I
if the
think,
money gets to where they, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay,
yeah,
I gave money, but is it really going there? Like, that's in
right,
back of your mind, you're like, because you
hmm,
hear a lot. You hear a lot
sure,
of things that the money doesn't get to the destination, right?
right,
So for me, it's like, okay, well, we'll deal with that, because you're gonna see it get to the destination, or to
right,
whatever the cause is. And
right,
that's why with this entrepreneur program, I think it's huge for nowadays, because I get brought to schools now. They start opening up to talk about, hey, because everyone wants to be a YouTube sensation now. These kids, they're like, I don't need to go to college. I'll just get TikTok, YouTube, and I make millions. And I'm
right,
like, okay, how the cat's out of the bag, right?
yeah,
So I tell these kids, okay, let's say you're gonna be the next YouTube sensation. What is your asset? Like, what have you made better than the
right,
others to
right,
get this going? And then
yeah.
they
What
just
makes
sit
you
there.
unique?
Yeah, right. And then if you're not unique enough, you got to get crazier than the next person. So
Right.
so I get brought in to talk about this. So even more so, I talk to the counselors. I'm like, oh, this program is going to be perfect, because it's going to allow these kids to see that there are different ways to get where you want to go.
Absolutely. No, and it's great to have options, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of everybody trying to fit into one cookie cutter way of, I mean, look at your lifestyle and look where you came from. You didn't have the cookie cutter lifestyle, but you've
Mm-hmm.
still been able to
Yeah.
be successful. You still had plenty of options.
And Jay,
Um,
that, like, when you've been through that, you can look somebody in the eye and say it's going to be okay, right?
right.
If you've
Yeah.
been through the mix, with enough hard work, you can legit look someone in the eye and say, if you work hard enough, you can make it possible, because you made that possible for yourself.
Correct. Yeah, I think, and what's great about everybody that's been on this show has
Mm-hmm.
everybody has that everybody that I've talked to has had that same mindset, that same thought process, and you kept bringing up roadmap. Having a roadmap towards your goals. I mean, that's crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have a hard time,
Mm-hmm.
to to jump, right? Most people have
Right.
a hard time even just starting, but once you have that
Absolutely.
roadmap, and that it's you're going to get off course. Um,
Absolutely. And I read this audio book. It's on ownership, right?
mhm,
And or lack of, so to speak. Like,
sure.
that's the big thing. Like, take ownership of what you want to do, figure out how to get there, and then go, right? It's not up to Jason to make it happen. It's up to you to make it happen. And
Right.
I commend you on, I know you mentor your students, right? And it's huge. It's not something we ask for, but it's something that's given to us, right? So you're giving back as you're building your own legacy, and I commend you for what you're doing, because I feel like I always say this: if we all do a little, we can accomplish a lot, right? I
Yes,
always
sir.
say that, because if
100%.
we get everybody chipping in, it's huge, man. So I commend you on what you're doing in the community as well, because I'm watching you too, and I know you're making your moves up more part, and in other ways, which is awesome, man. Because I feel by you getting into these kind of areas, it also shines a light on, let's say, the committees you're in, right? Because
Right.
you're going to come in there and you're a little bit different. It's good. Change
Yes.
is good. It's refreshing. You know what I mean? Because you can bring change to something that maybe is not working anymore or is looked at in the old school way, and you can come in and really make some change.
Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, I never in a million years would have thought that I would be in the situation that I'm in our community. I'm a karate guy. I wanted to teach martial arts. If you asked me if I won the lottery or I had, unlimited amount of it, what would I do? I would open a bigger karate school that housed every possible, pro wrestling, the physical trainers, like
Right.
everything around
Yeah.
that. I just see that the more that we get into our community, the more that things
Hmm.
just kind of open up. And like you
Right.
said before, we're able to impact we'll have a far greater reach with our
Hmm.
impact. So instead of just a one-on-one interaction, now not only do I have access to a bigger group of people, but we're creating leaders within our
Hmm.
work that now we can service a bigger
Hmm.
group. So it's just it's really cool to see, and I agree with you that if we all just do a little,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how
Right.
many people are not even willing to
No.
do a little, right? But you do a little, I do a little, Mr.
Yeah.
Cox does a little, Mr.
Right.
Starachi does a little. We all do a little bit, but all together.
Right.
And interesting
Right.
enough that all four of those people I just mentioned, that martial arts
Uh-huh.
mindset too
Yeah.
is just such a powerful thing. So I think that we could probably continue on for much longer, but I think we're gonna call it here. And I
Okay,
just
no
want to give
problem,
you
man.
I just want to give you a minute just to kind of speak your mind a little bit more to everybody who's watching and just leave them
Uh,
with, your last bit of motivation or inspiration.
I just, I want to thank whoever came on or who's watching this. I appreciate you coming to just listen in. Jason, thank you for having me. We're like-minded, and and those gentlemen you mentioned, I mean, I have the utmost respect for as well. Mark Cox, David Starachi. I mean, those are my brothers as well. So, just to be in that group is an honor in itself. And I just tell anyone, give back. Like, find a little something in the community that you can give back to. And if you don't have access to it, find someone that does, because it just feels so good, and believe in yourself, right? In my office, I have behind me, believe it, achieve it. I have the sign. I couldn't come in today because we had technical difficulties. But man, just believe in yourself. Just don't, you know, take ownership, right? Be responsible for your actions and just go for it. Grind, like go for it. Never give up. And if you don't know something, find a mentor. That's probably one of the biggest things you
Mhm.
can do is find a mentor. And it doesn't mean you don't know anything, but we don't know
Right.
everything, right? So there are people that are willing to help or mentor. And I think that's a huge missing that people don't do, is to find a mentor. And, but I just thank everybody for watching and listening. And I hope, you got to know a little bit about me. And yeah, we could have went on forever. But, Jay, man, I appreciate you just, having me. And, my door is always open. You know that,
Yeah.
man. If there's
Uh,
anything I can do to help, whatever, or with the kids, or my door is always open to help, man.
I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time and just giving us a little insight into your life and your experience, because I think people can either relate or learn from it and take it, like I said, as a bit of, inspiration, motivation, because we're all going through life. We all have
Yeah.
our own struggles. We all have our own things. And I think it's really powerful that you said take ownership. And
Yeah.
there's no greater feeling to
Mhm.
give back, and it only takes that much effort. So,
And you know what?
if I,
Just real quick on the ownership, like even if you do something that's not good, take ownership, right?
uh,
Take ownership, learn from it, don't repeat it, move forward. Done. Don't deflect the ownership when you did something that's not good, and take ownership when you do something that's only good. Because that doesn't work. You got it, because we're not perfect. None of us are. And when we mess up, take ownership, and then don't also hold on to it and move forward.
So some of the people that I have the most respect for are the people that I know have made major mistakes, but they owned it. And whether they learned from it or they taught me, I always tell my kids and my students, you either watch people and learn what to do or learn what not to do. But people that I respect are the ones that have made those mistakes, owned up to it, fixed
Right.
it, changed it, and made a difference with it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
just a great lesson. So hey, thanks again. Appreciate
Hey,
you. I hope
Jay,
to
thank
catch
you,
up.
brother.
I hope to catch
Yes,
up soon in
absolutely.
person. And
That'll be awesome,
thank you
man.
guys.
And
Let's
I
just
wish
remind.
you the most success, brother.
Thank
Keep
you.
doing your thing, man. Really
Thank
good.
you. So, guys, everybody watching, just a reminder of some upcoming guests. Next week, I got Rafael Gomez from the Coaching Call. And then we have Rick Rando from Rando Speaks. And then we have Mike Metzger. You talk about mentors, right? I never really knew anything about the business of martial arts. And when I met Mike Metzger, he became my business mentor and a really good friend, as a matter of fact. So I'm looking forward to highlighting those four and so many more. Mr. Cox is coming up on August
All
9th.
right.
Chip Townsend. I mean, some really great people that I hope that everybody enjoys hearing their story. So, Ronnie, thanks again. Keep grinding, keep hustling, keep working, buddy.
Oh, you know that.
All
All right. Thank you, man.
right, guys. Everybody have a great
Hi,
week, and
brother.
we'll see you next Monday.
Okay.